Andras, awesome. So we've discussed the basics of blockchain, what blockchain kind of really means. We spoke about a little bit of history of the technology. We've discussed the different tokens and like the principles of tokenization on blockchain. And I would love to, and I'm excited about this part, the third part, which is the kind of gamification of social capital and like the different ways in which communities can track those interactions on blockchain. And I think it would be great to maybe go into some practical examples, like for example, like on the Galaxis network. You know, I'm thinking of, for example, the use that we had at NF Castle with William Lobkowitz. Whether we can talk about the different ways how those tokens can be exchanged and what that actually means for communities. You know, why communities should give a damn.
Sure. So I think if we think about this, we don't really need to reinvent the wheel here. There are many good and working mechanisms how communities can exist and how social capital flows within those communities. Again, what we do and what we can do is to extend the boundaries of that. Because your community, your social, the tribe that you belong to may not live around you. You could be in a small town, getting into some subcultures, which is very specific and very unique for your interests. Digital anthropology. And there are probably hundreds and thousands of other people who are very much interested in the same place, but may not live in the same small town of 500 people in a rural part of, I don't know, Finland.
Yeah.
So what we can do is we can actually turn these communities truly global. And as you of course you know that there was a reason why large cities grew around big rivers.
Yeah.
Because it brought together all the materials and everything else, and why now big communities are going around the fast internet.
Yeah,
that's the same reason. So, and this is, I think, what is needed to actually create real communities in this new type of rivers, in order to create the same sort of intimate, direct, and ultimately trusted, aka trustless communities. And for that, this technology, blockchain, is the one that might actually hold the answer, because of this ability to bring together the significant part of both worlds, the physical world and the digital world.
Yep.
And if you think about it this way, this is what blockchain has always been. I felt different for me than any other type of technology. When it came to blockchain, it was never just like technology only, math only, physics only, or sociology only, or finance only. It always been like a basket.
Yes.
Of these things, together with the social interaction, together with gamifications, together with finance, together with everything. It's like real life.
Yes.
It's like this is the technology that, in some ways, I feel is capable of extending everything that is important to a truly global state.
Yeah.
stepping over or sidestepping all the mistakes of what we have done in the last 30 years of internet. Do you want to get into that? May I talk about a little bit of that as well?
Yes, absolutely. And just a brief comment, because you made a really interesting point around, like, the rivers and the environmental determinism, because basically, like, all the good places in the world are taken. All the oil fields, all the rivers, the fertile land in the Ukraine, that's taken. And basically what I feel like, without like deifying it or glorifying it too much, that the reasons why, communities should give a damn is that blockchain creates the new frontier. Like, humanity can try again in different ways, but it doesn't mean that, like, once you take this particular river or you take this particular bit of land, you can do that over and over again with different communities. So, people, it's almost like that they don't want to give themselves the freedom to, like, realize that they can be not only members of several communities at once, because what anthropology and, like, what humans are very good at, is ritualizing interactions and ritualizing identity. So we live our entire lives basically like selling ourselves to one symbol. Like, I was walking down the street the other day and I was looking at, like, how shops, sell themselves, and logo, title, visual identity, color combination. And we almost feel it's like an exclusive marriage, like once you sign up yourself to one community, that's it, finished. Either you have to go through a divorce, so, like give up your state belonging, or like an exit rite of passage from the tribe where you get excommunicated or ostracized, like in ancient Greece, the ostrakos, where you get sent away from the polis, and you have to find a new one. But in blockchain, I have many interests: digital anthropology. I like the Second World War, of course, like not the principle, but like I enjoy the
the historical era.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can be. It's not being promiscuous with your identity, that you can belong to more tribes at the same time and also profit from that. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's redefining value. Yes.
Wrong with that.
Yes.
That opens up so many things. One thing that I wanted to talk to you about at the beginning when we mentioned it is that when we talked about why many people don't like blockchain, so by definition they have a very, very negative stance against the technology, and they are more than willing to throw away the baby with the bathwater, so to say. One thing that is may not be true, but it keeps coming into my mind is that many, and you can cut this out later if it doesn't if it doesn't fit. Many of the obviously very, very intelligent people who technical, intelligent people who are adamant against anything blockchain is not because they lost money, because I think they did not make money, because they missed
the opportunity.
They missed the opportunity.
Yeah, and they're jealous.
And this I think this is a real issue, because they are very rightfully can say that I did more than that. I was smarter than that. I gave a lot more when I built this system and that system. And I'm still here trying to make ends meet. Yeah. And some of those idiots who just happen to be lucky. Yeah. Now they are the representatives of the technology. And I really want to see how can we fix this.
Yes.
Because just because of the lucky people who happen to be in the right place at the right time, I think many very smart people are throwing away the opportunity and the ability to actually embrace the technology that could help them to do the same thing.
Yes.
That could actually not to have millions. I mean, sometimes there are lucky coincidences, but that's pure luck. And everybody say that they forcing it.
No.
They were lucky.
Yeah.
They were lucky. But anyway, what this technology can do, as long as you have an audience who is interested in what you are doing, and boy, there are a lot of audience interested in a lot of these things that these people are doing as well. You can create a sustainable community that sustains you and your project, so you are not at the mercy of advertisers, of donations, of big players throwing some scraps at you. What you can do is you can create your tribe, like if you would be living in the same street in your city, and see, I give you value, and yes, you will give me value. Of course, you will give me value because you want to make sure that I can keep doing what I am doing, and we don't need anybody else to approve it. This would remove. If people would realize this would remove a lot of the bias that you can also see. And now we are going to make yet another group very angry at us. Would remove the bias that you can see right now from VCs and investors.
Yeah.
Because projects now are not doing what they think it would actually be helping specific groups of people. But they are building projects that they think they can get investment.
Yes, absolutely. This is, definitely not cutting that out. You opened up so many interesting points. Very quickly, just to react, so I can organize it in my head as well. How you mentioned the kind of very, clever people who missed the opportunity. I think humans have this way of like rationalizing the past, because the human lifespan is very limited. And for a lot of things like, like our productive age or reproductive age, we have like one shot. So like that's why people try to justify bad relationships. People are worried about wasting time on something. When in the Czech Republic, I think that's why there's so much, for example, nostalgia for communism. Not because people would actually miss it, but because they think, well, I spent 30 years of my life not being able to travel and not being able to buy bananas. Of course, I can't say that my life was a waste of time and I missed opportunity because I'd have to go hang myself. So there's these like very interesting cognitive exercises I feel that people sometimes go through to kind of like put themselves at rest. The other thing why I think that blockchain is so endangering to a lot of people is that humans spend their time strategizing extremely with their social capital, with the way they communicate. And like you mentioned, like with the startups, I remember like, in 2014, like everyone wanted a startup, everyone wanted to save the world, etc. But it became like a game of Monopoly where the VCs, I completely agree with you, are also often not actually educated about the technology. They give it to people with the best marketing, the best spiel, the sexiest technology that can give them the biggest return on investment, because the market doesn't understand the technology either. So they don't actually care, what do you need a 20th e-commerce platform for? You don't. Like, you've solved the problem. Like, you're just reinventing the wheel because you're doing it under your shield, under your image. So it's going to bring money to you. And this sustainability of actually solving the problem at hand, and not just like using the current kind of like market hype to bring money your way. Of course, people are terrified of that.
Metaverse.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So I'm actually curious because how you think that blockchain, because you touched on it a little bit and we didn't go into it, how it's different from, the old internet. Like what were the mistakes of the kind of like technological revolution of the internet that blockchain kind of not solves, but doesn't have to bother itself with, and you can still make, money or sustain yourself without kind of prostituting yourself.
Might actually solve, at least in some way. So okay, the internet happened, early 2000s. It was an incredible era. Suddenly, like everything opened up. It was fantastic. Like if you were an artist, suddenly you got an audience of 3 billion people. It's like unimaginable. It's fantastic. But you quickly had to realize that you have an audience of 3 billion people, but nobody is paying.
Yeah.
Because there was no way to do that. There was no way to actually send payment. It was the all like money transfers and whatnot, but there was no good way of doing it. And then some of the payment networks started to do it, but also people realized that, okay, I can't actually get funded by these tens of thousands of people who we are interacting with daily basis in the chat forums and everything else of the olden days. But at least these guys are willing to pay a couple of cents if I put their name on the banner on the top of the page. So the advertisement started to happen, and it was kind of understandable. At least there was some way to recover some of the cost and basically make some money off your popularity. I think the dangerous thing was there that it decoupled the what and replaced it purely with eyeballs. Meaning it doesn't matter what, as long as it generated views, you could actually get the advertisement money. And the quality didn't really matter. It's more like the quantity of the crowd that you could attract. We can see how wrong that trajectory went. If you could think about everything else, Cambridge Analytica and all that kind of thing. So basically what happened is that advertisements started to happen. And in order to, and it is very interesting because every step makes sense in the local context. But if you see the whole journey, it's a horrifying kind of path. It's like say that what is the saying that the path to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes.
And I think this is what is happening here. So first, advertisements, okay, you can make some money, finally. Second is, let's see, actually, if we are doing advertisement, let's show what actually is interesting for these people. It makes sense, right? Let's not show them things that they would not be interested in anyway. So let's get some data on the people, so we know who we are talking with. And it was like a snowball effect, in my opinion, that actually became to this system where the only important currency of the so-called Web 2 internet is personal data.
Yeah.
And that is being collected everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah.
It goes into details that I don't even want to mention, but again, you can cut it out if you don't want to in the show. You might notice that you get this very maddening puzzles that you need to solve sometime in order to get the page loaded, these captchas.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's a very clever way of decentralizing manual annotation of data.
Yes, but you know that if you are browsing from a browser where you are not logged in with Google, you are getting much more of that. It's a form of a punishment of not providing enough information of yourself.
Oh, okay. That makes right, because you're not being able to be automatically verified without you knowing. Right. Okay. That's crazy.
All right. So this guy he doesn't want to be identified. So let's make them work for that page.
That's crazy.
I know I'm overdoing this, but you can actually test it if you browse the not only on an page, because that's not enough, if you know it well.
Yeah.
But from a browser that you clear the cookies and definitely not logged in with Google to Gmail or whatever, you will get much more of it.
That's crazy.
Everywhere. Anyway, let's get back to the system. So let's say you are an artist and you wanted to monetize your work. I know it sounds crazy, right?
Why not just like die of tuberculosis in a ditch, like in the romantic sense? Yeah.
So there was no way to that at the beginning, and then so companies started to provide ways to that, and in general, the way was to hide your art.
Yeah.
Hide your art behind paywalls, hide your art behind encryption, hide your art behind a lot of more and more devious ways of protection.
Yep.
In order to prevent people who wanted to see it but did not want to or could not pay for it. Again, as a first step, it's sort of understandable. But if you think about the implications of it, it's like basically saying that in order to become successful, you need to, first of all, hide your art.
Yeah.
Potentially destroy your art on the long term. And when we are talking about the DRM systems and DRM schemes with centrally run servers, this is actually destroying your art. We have now hundreds and thousands of pieces of art that is not available anymore because the DRM server was taken offline. And that's it. Yeah. That is the end of the story. It cannot be recovered. And then it wasn't enough because people on the internet, they say it was actually for sharing information, so they share the information anyway. So the logical next step is sue your fan base.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Make laws to make it illegal for people to share the information.
Yeah.
And that kind of snowballed from there into this current state where people think that that sharing a piece of information is theft. It is not.
Yeah. Yes.
Theft, and this is very, very serious. And now, so basically, I think this is how slowly things became worse and worse. But because of this, the proverbial frog being buoyant slowly, everybody kind of went with it.
Yes, yeah.
But if you think about it now, if you just stop for a moment and think about it, that all right, so now an artist, in order to be successful, need to be aggressively suing their own followers, need to hide their art behind behind the technology that is only provided by some very specific groups, and basically have to destroy their own long-term. They did have to destroy their art on the long term of things. Let's not talk about how the copyright laws and everything are being extended
Yes.
as certain Disney movies are being released, so that movies are always just not being moved into the public domain. So we are basically creating this cultural wasteland. Like 1,000 years from now, people will say, okay, it's very weird. For these 200 years, we don't actually have information of what they did in terms of art and everything else.
Yeah.
So now, let's see, I think it was, what year it was? I don't remember. So that I remember the date. It was, I think, the 4th of December, where people had this historic release on Nifty, where he, again, people was an artist giving away art for free on Instagram. One image every day for free, everybody to follow. And then he took those images, some of those images, and he shoot them again for as NFTs. On that day, you could buy a Beeple NFT for $100 for 5 minutes. So it was open for 5 minutes. The sale was open for 5 minutes, and then after that, it was closed. Quite a few got sold. Not everything got sold, and there were a couple of other things that people could bid on it, but doesn't matter. Even the ones that sold for 5 minutes. And remember, there was no NFT hype before this.
Yes.
There was no NFT hype before this. There were NFTs, they were, okay, you could actually get a CryptoPunk for $20 at that time. So there was no hype. NFTs were there, no hype, nothing like that. But when people are very well-known, normal artists came to the space and did this thing for $100, people were more than happy to pay the money. Not because of they could get exclusive right to the image. Those images had been on Instagram for years.
Yeah.
Anybody could download them. And this is but this is just a JPEG people need to understand. People are not interested in these because they want to buy the JPEG. That is silly. Why they are interested is because, and this was proven by this thing is, because in this way, they could get something from a real artist over the internet, something that they can own.
Yeah. And
what they own is not the JPEG. What they own is the pointer to the JPEG that is available for everybody to download.
Yes.
And this is very important. It's the same thing as the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
I can take a picture of the Mona Lisa. I was there. I took a picture of the Mona Lisa. And they say, oh, I can just copy the JPEG and sell it. No, you can't. Because the same way you take a picture of the Mona Lisa, nobody will give you money for that.
Yeah.
Because everybody sees that this is not the original Mona Lisa.
Yeah. Yeah.
And finally, what these NFTs could do is they could actually prove beyond doubt that I bought something from people.
Yeah.
Which is nothing else than a pointer, but I know that only 100 people have it, and I bought it from him.
Yes.
And that is why people paid the money, not because they got delusional about JPEGs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that created the NFT hype. But that's a different story. The same NFT that you could buy for $100 on that day, on December. I'm sorry, I don't remember the year. I think it was like 2020.
Yeah.
2020 December. 2021 March, they were sold for $150,000.
It's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
And that is the hype. And that is the hype.
Yeah.
That is the hype. But when the whole thing happened, when people bought this, they did not buy it because there was a hype. There was no hype. They bought it because they finally were given a way to buy something from an artist without all the meaningless stuff like encryption and protection and whatever. People don't care. People don't care if anybody else can see the art.
Yeah.
It's good if somebody else can see the art. What I need is the right to prove that, yes, I bought this from people. And this is why it is actually proving that NFTs, if handled properly, and I hope on the long term, is like anti-DRM. Because DRM and this copy protection nonsense have been pushed on many of the artists, telling them that this is the only way you will ever make money. This is the only way that you can actually be successful. If you encrypt your art, if you protect your art, if you sue the people who wants to see your art, if you hide your art, if you destroy your art.
Yes.
And what we see is no, the real solution is just create something that everybody can see, even on the internet, that it's limited. And it was actually created by that guy. And even 10 years from now, I can prove that actually it was actually created by that guy, and it's not the JPEG.
Yeah, absolutely. You beautifully described something that, like, I find really frustrating. And it's kind of like not even making money, but being kind of sustainable, being able to buy your way through surviving in society. And that basically happens through tokenization. And that doesn't have to be money, but that is some form of token that gets you back something in return. And what really frustrates me is that the only way to attain that right now is exactly like taking knowledge away from people, teasing people with, oh, you cannot get this, like in Borat. But like it's fun and games when it's like influencers going on, I don't know, like behind paywalls and like pay so that you can hear my really enlightened talk about my backpacking trip to Thailand or whatever. But when it becomes a huge problem is when that is done with knowledge, and in science and in academia.
Yes.
That is something that frustrates me because you're taking knowledge away from people. All the money and the millions and billions of euros and dollars that are invested so that scientists can have very little pay to dedicate their whole lives into breaking big questions for humanity. And then you have a paywall of $25 on a scientific article. It's nonsense. And what like really gives me hope and why I'm such a, I'm not hyping this up because, you told me to, and it's a Galaxis talk, so I have to. Not at all. I think one of the reasons why you and I get on so much is that it's not a desire to make money. It's a desire to be sustainable, but at the same time, don't take information away from people and have that freedom of information circulation. And in science, honestly, that terrifies me. And no wonder there's conspiracy theories. No wonder there is distrust in institutions, because these institutions are withdrawing essential knowledge on how to be human and how to survive from groups that might not be able to afford them. And that's not being socialist. That is just being human and sharing knowledge in a network, in a hive mind.
Yes, absolutely. And this is also very important because of that, or sort of because of that, people are, or many people develop this policy, thinking that if they are making money, they are doing something wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think this is absolutely incorrect. And this is something that we need to be able to show. The birth of this whole technology came through people who were making money, and that enabled them to build what they will enable others to do the same. And we are not talking about making millions of dollars within a couple of years and then retire the next day. We are talking about enabling people who want to support us because what we are doing is valuable.
Yeah.
Galaxis originally grew out of an educational project. Galaxis is the generalization of an idea of what we came up with of how can we create an educational project where people who create the educational material and people who teach the material can create a sustainable ecosystem that is supporting them without grants, without donations, without handouts.
Yeah.
And when we kind of understood what can be done, it was the same thing, membership cards. And based on what you do within the community, which again could be a community of an archaeologist, a writer, a linguist, somebody from OnlyFans, or even more controversial, a politician, could reach out to their community, create their community, provide what the community values, and enable that community to sustain in a proper manner. When we started working on this idea, what I wanted to fundamentally change is how ecosystem works, social works, science, open source development, education can turn sustainable.
Yes.
That is what, this is my secret plan still. This is what Galaxis is about. To create an alternative way of funding and monetizing somebody's own creativity.
Yeah.
And enable the people who wants to support them to support them. In order to make it happen, a couple of things has to happen. One is that the technology has to go beyond the hype.
Yeah.
The technology has to again become boring and accepted part of the family of technologies they are using. For example, back in the 80s, 90s, you could see advertisements in newspapers, companies advertising that they are using databases.
CRMs.
Yeah. Databases. And like by the early 2000s, nobody was talking about it because, of course, you are using databases. Nobody can not use databases if they want to be in the business. And then in the 2000s, it was like, we have a web page. And it was like, wow.
Yeah. Oh.
It's like web developers were like next to astronauts in social capital.
Yes.
In that, you can hear a lot of crazy stories about that bubble. What happened with that bubble? It bursted. Companies lost 90% or 99% of the values. Did the internet go away? It didn't. It actually became a boring but absolutely fundamental part of our daily life.
Yes.
So in order for blockchain and for NFTs, yes, I just said this three-letter word, fulfill their purpose, their promise, they need to go through the same cycle.
Yeah.
They need to go through the hype. They need to become boring, and they need to sink into the sea of boringness.
Yeah.
And it has to become like the same way that, yes, of course you are using NFTs, or of course you are using blockchain technology. How else would you do business?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And when we get there, now there we could actually claim back a lot of the things that in this last 20 years we kind of lost in terms of the ability to act like normal businesses, normal human beings, without the blessings of these big tech players.
Yeah.
It has to kind of break down again to normalcy. And as much as I can tell right now, this is the way to go. And when it happens, you could actually create a community about digital archaeology or non-digital archaeology, and people who would actually join your Discord group, they would still join there, but they would also be able to be part of it by having a membership card and being able to support you. And through your membership card, through those membership cards, you can actually give them things that being valued by that particular community.
Yeah.
And from that point on, the means of communicating with the community is not critical anymore. Because if you can't or don't want to use this platform, then you do use that platform or the third platform. But from that point on, the platforms will not hold hostage of your community. Your community is where your members are, identified by your membership card, that nobody can take it from you.
Yeah.
Nobody can take it from them, not even Galaxis, obviously. Nobody else. And you can actually find the venue, you can actually find the means of interaction, which is completely separated from Galaxis.
Yes.
Galaxis is not trying to be a decentralized social media. Galaxis is ways to identify and reward your members and enable those members to support you and create sustainable communities.
Yes. Yes, you are. This is fascinating because what you mentioned about the different hypes of like databases, website, big data, cloud computing, all that stuff. Exactly. AI. And I think
it's good. It's hype right now.
Exactly, and I think the kind of like technological FOMO is where people are trying to use the immaturity of the market to quickly make money on the hype and not actually use the technology to solve the relevant problem. Because AI is great when I need to prepare a presentation that no one's going to read anyway. Yeah, absolutely, I'm going to generate it, but I'm not going to use it to write a letter to my mom. Because I want to write that, and I don't need AI for that type of task. And I feel like in the museum sector, for example, when we were discussing how NFTs can be used in the cultural space, I remember how, for example, the British Museum just started selling NFTs for the sake of NFTs, and it wasn't really solving a problem. But for example, not at all. But like what you did with William Lobkowitz, where kids could have cards and do certain tasks, and then you could collect, and then you could win a game in the physical world. That's a different way of engaging with culture, and you don't need to digitalize the Rosetta Stone and sell that just so that you can make more money. That's a completely different, irrelevant use of that tech. Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. We are seeing the same sort of use cases that we see in the news of the internet, the famous stories like pets.com. Yes, right. I will buy my pet over a website. That's of course, the nonsensical use cases kind of died out. But again, the internet didn't. And if we cannot go, we need to be able to go through the same cycle with this. And blockchains in some ways are special because they cut much deeper into people's existence and feeling and wallet potential. I'm not talking about the ones who are. I'm not talking about the ones who are unfortunately lost. I can relate. I don't want to tell my horror stories. Whenever I was stupid enough to try to trade, I lost. So I never do that. But I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about the entities who are now making money by not providing the right solution, by telling artists to hide your stuff, protect, sue, and gaining power, scary power that they can actually influence how laws are being made to protect themselves. And if this technology survives, it's going to be difficult for them. They need to pivot. And I think some of them will be able to. Some of them will not be able to. But when it comes to that, you always need to remember the Nokia story. It's a super fascinating thing. It was 2007 when Forbes, the magazine, had their cover of the magazine said with big letters, I don't know the exact, but we can look it up. It's like billions in profit, hundreds of millions of customers. Can anybody ever catch the cell phone giant, Nokia? 2007, the same year when the iPhone was released. And 2 years later, there was no Nokia. In 2007, it was nonsense to think about the 2 years later there will be no Nokia. This is just one kind of just something to remember when you think that the large companies who shall not be named will always be there.
They won't.
They probably won't. And so if this technology goes beyond the hype and actually fulfills its purpose, it can bring a lot of normalcy into interactions. Not only to be able to provide sustenance for important stuff, again, ecosystem work, social work, science, how science is being funded, open source technology, how open source technology is being funded, education is being funded. It can create a non-donation-based, but proper sustainability for these areas. And I think it would be very important for the future of us and our offspring to have this kind of more normal way of being able to provide business.
Absolutely.
And opportunity.
It's almost like a different way of thinking about value, and that actually really nicely summarizes this segment, which was discussing social capital and like redefining value in the digital age. Because I was thinking about this, how also culturally, we live in the Judeo-Christian kind of, tradition where leadership or a position in society always has like a buyout, either martyrdom or suffering, or there's something always like attracted to basically gaining social capital. And blockchain, like the way of thinking is that you don't have to sacrifice, your art or your thoughts or your position in society for dying poor in a ditch or bullying your fan base in order to get more money out of them. You can actually have the best of both worlds. And humans are fascinating in the sense that we cannot imagine something that like hasn't like happened yet. Like it's very difficult for us to imagine an alternative way of living and an alternative way of functioning because, you know, that's the way we've always done things. But the fact that it can bring much more of a social and cognitive revolution rather than necessary technological, that's, I think, fascinating. And I would love to discuss this in the fourth and final segment, which is, I call it the cloud civilization because I couldn't think of a better name. But basically how blockchain can restructure society because we'll be thinking different about value and interactions. So let's discuss that in the fourth segment. Perfect. Right. Sorry, Andras, I just again want to give you the time if you want to.
Nope, I'm good.
You good? Yeah? Fantastic.
I'm good.
Perfect.
I'm good.
Okay. All right, I'll introduce this again. Okay, Andras, so we discussed, we went through the whole thing. We discussed blockchain, what it is, what it isn't. We discussed tokenization, the different types of tokens that can be on blockchain and the different types of transactions. We discussed what can be the object of those transactions. So things like social capital, the different use cases of how these tokens and this gamification can be used and what that does to our understanding of value and the society around us. And finally, what do we do with it? And how is it going to change the world that we live in? Because no animal wants to kill itself. So big tech giants don't want to become obsolete. Nation states don't want to become obsolete because they need taxes in order to survive. The medical system or what I consider sometimes to be like the mafia of academia and grant giving, that's not going to want to kill itself. So what do you think the implications are for social structure, decision making? You know, is that something that maybe DAOs can kind of like bring forward? Can that be one of the use cases of actually creating new social structures? I know that this is a huge question, but I'm just curious about like your visionary take on that.
Well, these are big shoes to fill, you know.
Yeah.
But what I think is that I don't want to make enemies out of all those super powerful parties that you just listed. B, I think what is blockchain is good at, and eventually everybody has to agree that this is important. Blockchain is that actually one thing. If we want to boil it down to one word, it would be accountability. So how every system can be improved without first fundamental changing is providing more accountability. And blockchain is horrible when it comes to privacy. It is the opposite of privacy. Blockchain is horrible when it comes to like making decisions or whatnot. This is not what blockchain is for. Again, what blockchain is good for is accountability. In the practical sense, it boils down to if I send you a token on the blockchain, it is accounted for. There is no way for this to I keep it and I give it to you as well, or to go to somebody else. So this is the basic fundamental part of accountability. And if we approach these use cases through accountability, then I think lots of those parties will see benefits in them. As long as there is a need and wish for accountability, blockchain can improve.
Yes,
which is important. But I think the other thing that I can, and I want to focus the set of our enemies into a smaller group, is that what I can feel that blockchain can be very useful Because what we have discussed very at length earlier, that slowly, because of small steps, what happened is that everybody on the internet was conditioned to believe that attention equals value.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter attention for what. And that alone explains a lot of the crazy that is happening now in the world. Because attention equals value, whatever brings the most attention will be more valuable, and what brings more attention, the most outlandish stuff. So step by step, algorithms were actually conditioned to amplify the crazy.
Yes.
And that's what we've seen now.
Yes.
So if we kind of break it down into this, what blockchain can do is that, again, teach it to people that value is different from community to community.
Yes.
The same way as value was different when the whole internet started. Obviously, my community of collecting stamps was very different from your community, I don't know, talking about NFL and everything else. But because of the inability to monetize these communities, we both put the ads on our websites. And then from that point on, it was just attention.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what was the attention for.
Yes. Yeah.
So because of the missing layer of the internet, of being able to monetize my own creativity, we, again, step by step, and every step in isolation was logical. But the way it kind of turned into a system where the more attention brings more value, and then what everything needs to optimize is for more attention. Facebook algorithms, all kind of crazes. It's all about just the attention bringing the value. So what we are proposing here is that with this technology, we can reset this. And the community and the value of my community is, again, going to be different from the value of your community, which is the way we should do.
Yes. You again raised so many interesting things, because the implications for social structure are huge. Because I'll start with a stupid story. But I was watching, because I was brain dead and very tired, so I put on the Fast and Furious, I think 7 or something, like Vin Diesel, brilliant.
I have seen them all. Don't apologize. I have seen them all.
It's a beautiful work of art. But there is know the villain Cypher, played by Charlize Theron, and the whole kind of character arc there is that she's a hacker, obviously, hacks into anything in the world, and she wants to steal the nukes and the nuclear submarine for accountability, because she's basically frustrated that, and the reason I remember is I saw it very recently, but I thought it's an interesting segue into the problem, is that, politicians and kind of world global systems are not accountable to anyone, so if she can basically hack her way into a position of power, she can hold them accountable and then get back whatever she wants. And I think it's kind of translates into what you beautifully mentioned, almost like a mathematical equation of kind of attention equals value. When, for example, companies do, they work with influencers and they say, oh, if you have, 10,000 or more followers, then that's the moment we're interested, because we get the return on investment, because basically you're geometrically growing the attention that we can get. But that doesn't mean that the value, there's any value in the content. But then there's a whole business then looped into that, where influencers buy their followers, and where they kind of, I saw this thing on Instagram where because people are very clever and they find ways to hack the system, people started creating like hate content where it's so cringeworthy or so hateful. Like one of them, the like American mums cooking, and they always put in like unseasoned meat, you know, and like a big block of cheese, and then they feed it to the kids because they know that people will react in outrage. Or I saw another account, Christian Disney adults, and they create really cringy content because they know that people will comment with, you know, hate, and they will again get more exposure.
Yes.
It's fun and games when it's Christian Disney adults, but when it's politicians, and basically democracy is nothing more but politicians being influencers. And it's no longer about the ideas and the memetics of actually solving a problem. You're buying your followers, like if you were an influencer on Instagram. Which is why the whole blockchain for running communities has a complete implications for, you know, structure of parliament, for law, for policing, for how we live, how we structure civilization, because suddenly it's not prostituting yourself for votes, regardless of whether that's on social media or into parliament.
Yes, absolutely. Let's not even get into that. Probably we both agree that we know those deeply, and it's quote unquote, deeply devoted religious political leaders who easily became Zen Buddhists by tomorrow if that is what would keep them in power.
Yeah.
So let's not even get there. So basically, I think what blockchain can potentially provide just by simply enabling you to be supported by your community on good terms. It might actually remove this very bad notion that attention equals value.
Yeah.
And if we can get this far, then as you said, the implications are, I can't even start thinking how much how much could everything might actually go back to more normal.
Yes.
But there was an article that I read many years ago, which basically described this very beautifully. It's there was a blog, I don't even know if it still exists. I think it was called Star Slate Codex, and the article's title was Meditations on Moloch. It's for me that was basically a game changer when I understood what he was talking about. He was talking about that, and it's sort of controversial, that if you look back at historical data, the best, and again, this is not my opinion, this is what he claimed and sort of tried to prove in the article, that the best kind of governmental system is benevolent dictatorship. Yes, because if you have a benevolent dictator with infinite and good knowledge, and that dictator has full power, then you will end up with the best possible society.
Yeah.
The trick is not the dictator part, is the benevolent part.
Yeah.
And sometimes, again, I'm going to take examples. Sometimes he claimed that over the history, some nations got lucky and got this combination of basically ultimate benevolence and ultimate power in the same hands. And that almost always resulted in golden ages for those societies. again, I don't want to, this is not my opinion. This is something that he went through and talked about. But basically what he was alluding to, and what I actually understood from it, that if you have a leader that is ultimately and fundamentally accountable, you can potentially replicate this. Because if you have, because you have the best ideas, you have the best ideas before you make a decision. But when you make that decision is always a lot of factors, influences, and everything else, and it can go in a lot of other ways. So imagine that we have a democracy, and we say that in order to do this and this, that is the process. And the process is well documented, which is always is, but also implemented as a smart contract.
Right.
And the process, the inputs of the process are known, are public. And the outputs of the process are public as well. What is not public is the actual, how the decision was actually made. If the decision, which is not always possible, but often possible, if the decision is very factual and can be done by all known parameters, then it is possible to have a structure where it goes in, the input variables go in, and the decision comes out. And not only the ideal decision-making process, but also every step of the decision is publicly available.
Yeah.
And in this way, you can have a democracy where you don't need to trust the decision makers.
Yes. You don't have to just like cross your fingers and hope for the best, because you actually, it's like in a maths equation, you don't just see the result, but you show you're working.
You show you're working. And think about this way. There were many times, just a very, very silly, very simplified example. I know what I am talking about. I know how far it is. But just think about it. You would have politicians with power where their important decisions they could show they're working.
Yeah.
And I think that would actually lead to a lot more of actually working democracies.
Yeah.
Like we see in very, very few places in the world, for example, in Switzerland. I would love that to be in other places as well, in much more towards that standard. So imagine this, that you have like a ride-sharing system where drivers pick up the ride based on the location, based on a lot of parameters. What was known for many of the biggest ride-sharing systems, I'm not going to name names again. I don't have money for lawyers for that. It was actually shown that they were skewing like making decisions based on the area that you were. So in order to, for example, if I remember the story right, in order for them to get approved in the App Store, they made the system that the system was very fair around the Apple campus, because that is where the testers were testing it. But further away, it wasn't that fair, and used criteria that they should not be using. So in this way, even in a simple way, imagine that when somebody picks up your package, because it's a distributed package delivery system, you could actually verify that guy picked up the package because that was the closest and that has the highest rating among them.
Yeah.
not because he was friends with the guy who had access to the database, so you can actually modify the value, or they shared the benefits of the lost package or whatever. Just saying. So in this case, what I can see ultimately how blockchain can also fundamentally change society is show my working when making decision. And it's my power whether I put it through that system.
Yes.
It's my power if I change it, because absolutely correct. After a while, we could notice that, we thought this is the right way of doing it, but no, actually we need to change things. It is absolutely fine. It is not about the code, this code is low kind of nonsense. I'm not signing up for that. Meaning you people say that if it's there, this is how it is going to make noise. It's silly. But in this way, you can actually make decision-making democratic and transparent. Well,
yes, and it's the transparency. And by the way, this is one of my favorite discussions I've ever had, because like it all is coming together, like all the topics that we touched on from the beginning. I have maybe it's a stupid analogy, but when you say like show your workings, it's like the KFC 17 herbs and spices. You don't tell anyone because you want to keep the mysterium. And when you kind of extrapolate that onto a social system, I think one of the reasons why people don't trust the state or like big institutions, and why there's so many conspiracy theories, is because people are paranoid and they're trying to find out those workings. They're trying to find out the reasons behind certain decisions. And I'm very much for. I hate like the game playing. It's like the same in relationships. Like if you like someone, you like someone. If you don't, you don't. But like be open about it, and don't be paranoid that like better not let him out of the house in case like he finds someone he likes better, or basically coercing decisions by withdrawing information is for me like awful.
Information disparity.
Exactly. But that's how.
Yes.
But that's exactly how humans have held power. People holding on to information and choosing what to share and with who. Yeah. And like I'm just wondering what the risks are of being transparent, in the sense like. If, I don't know, America or Germany or whatever says, look, we are engaging our participation in a certain war because we have a lot of financial interest in that region. People know anyway, if you just like say it out loud. This is fascinating to me, this accountability.
It is fascinating. Also, these are big, scary things. And for the record, I always loved to live in places with strong governments. I lived in Japan. I lived in Singapore. From this point of view, I think I'm pretty much like what is the opposite of an anarchist?
Like a statist. Yeah.
I am like that. I have always been like that. I like to be safe, but I also want to make sure that my surroundings make sense.
Yeah.
So I know that many anarchists or libertarians or whatever think that blockchain will replace governments. I think it's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. Blockchain has one and only one property that needs to be understood. It provides accountability. All I want is, I simply want a government who sees that as an opportunity and not as a threat.
Yes. And you mentioned, beautifully, and this is, I think, the fetishization of democracy and like kind of, the world we live in, which basically, again, just like picking blindly our football team, that's what we're doing. But the origins of democracy, that when Plato discusses, it is pretty much a benevolent dictatorship. It's a sophocracy. But what is interesting for me, because I also don't really... again, like it's the force like to choose labels. I don't see myself as a statist in the sense that I don't like the current selection of states that are available. It would be great to have the opportunity to create new ones. That doesn't mean not having a state at all, because I think anarchists are like atheists. They create a religion out of not having a religion, kind of thing. But what interests me, and I just want to touch on this briefly, is also like the regulation around blockchain and like the future of actually being implemented in decision making and in governments. Because like right now we have, a finite amount of flags, there's wars being fought every day, whether the United Nations considers something a state or doesn't.
Yeah.
So like the application process to become a country or a state or a scaled community is pretty difficult. And I think that the current selection of states will make it difficult to introduce a technology that could potentially bring competition, basically, because you're fundamentally competing for resources in the form of taxes, and you don't want people to go live somewhere where the conditions are better. So they're going to make that as complicated as possible. So I'm just curious how you see the kind of practical deployment of blockchain in the kind of governmental or state sectors, whether you think it's going to be a tough road in terms of regulation, maybe from what you currently see, or whether there's like glimpses that it might actually be brought into the mainstream and not just be, on the sidelines of community building.
This is, I think this is getting very precarious. What is the word for that? Because again, it really depends on the government.
Yeah.
Because what blockchain brings is accountability.
Yeah.
So once a government understands this, and again, they see that as an opportunity, I want to move there.
Yeah. Yeah.
If a government understands this and sees that as a threat, I don't want to leave there. It's very important. I think everybody needs to understand there is no place for maximalism here as well. There is a reason why we have secrets. Secrets are important from the government point of view as well, and every other point of view. Imagine trying to run a company in a way that everybody immediately sees every single transactions you make in your bank account. It would give incredible leverage over you to your competitors. So I think secrets and privacy is very important, and the blockchain is very bad at secrets and privacy. So in the same way as everything else, blockchain can also be used for horrible things, including forcing everybody but themselves to do every transaction on the blockchain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is like 1984 right there.
Yeah.
Because blockchains are very, very, very bad for privacy. That's why I am strongly against every use case when people try to put people's identities there or medical records there. It's like the worst idea ever. Like if you have it in a database, if somebody breaks in, they steal the records, at the very least you can take it down.
Yeah.
At the very least you can change the password or mitigate. But if you put it on the blockchain, if the key for that is ever leaked, it's done. It's there forever without being able to remove it, hide it again, and everything else. It's not a good idea. Blockchain is great for accountability. Blockchain, the only context blockchain is good for safety is it is very safe against changing its own past records. This is the only kind of protection it can offer. But when it comes to identity, it comes to information, you don't want to make it public you should not be putting it all to the blockchain. Because by definition, it's called a distributed ledger for a reason. It's a distributed ledger. And so again, when it comes to governments can benefit from it a lot as long as they approach it with the right expectations, which is whatever you put on the blockchain, it will be very accountable.
Yeah.
And I do think that there are a great deal of benefits in that.
Yeah. You beautifully summarized it, and I think that's I would love to talk to you for days, but sadly we have to wrap up our crusade that we went through today. But I think that you mentioned that beautifully, is that blockchain is just another tool. That doesn't mean that it'll be useful in all cases. It might be useful for some cases. And I think that's the maturity that we need to kind of come through. Like AI, like you're not going to generate everything in DALL-E or ChatGPT. Just because blockchain exists doesn't mean that suddenly everything should be on blockchain. And I think that, and I think that what you beautifully showed us today is the versatility of blockchain, what it is and what it isn't, and the possibilities it gives us without creating a religion out of it. So I think that is wonderful, and I think that it really beautifully translates to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andras. I wish you all the best with Galaxis launch. Ladies and gentlemen, definitely keep an eye on it. This has been a big episode created out of 4 blogs, but also go on the Galaxis YouTube channel and the website, because it'll be compartmentalized into smaller bite-sized videos, and there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. And I think, if I may, I would love to leave it with a quote from Captain Nemo when he says that we may brave human laws, but we cannot resist natural ones. So I think that is something where we can leave it, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andras. It's been wonderful.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Look after yourself, and we'll pick this up again when we see each other.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye. Good luck. Thank you. Bye.